Welcome to this week's Hymn of the Week. This week we have EOW 890, Mine Eyes Have Seen the Glory. In November 1861, Julia Ward Howe, who wrote the text of Mine Eyes Have Seen the Glory, was returning from a review of Union troops near Washington, D.C. She heard the Union troops singing, "John Brown's body lies a-mouldering in the grave, his soul is marching on." So we have to think of this as very much like almost a folk song. John Brown's body lies a-mouldering in the grave. John Brown's body lies a-mouldering in the grave. John Brown's body lies a-mouldering in the grave, and his soul is marching on. So I think we can hear that, right? And so John Brown was the abolitionist who raided the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry in Virginia in 1859. A pastor who was with Julia Ward Howe during this review in 1861, his name was James Freeman Clark, suggested that Julia write an alternate text for the tune, since they were singing John Brown's body lies a-mouldering in the grave. And the reason for that was because Julia Ward Howe was a poet. So later that night at the Willard Hotel in D.C. in November 1861, she woke up early dawn, pretty dark, and she just scribbled these thoughts onto a piece of paper. Pretty much in the dark, maybe a little dawn light. And what's interesting there is, with her scribbles, we know that she could only interpret them really for 24 hours. So she obviously read it later the next day and tried to make sense of what she wrote that night. And what happened was she took that text home with her to Boston, and it was published in the Atlantic Monthly in February 1862. And that's when they titled it the Battle Hymn of the Republic, which we see here, Battle Hymn, listed as the tune name. Now what's interesting here is, maybe let's highlight two elements. The first, it begins, "Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord." This is a piece that starts with the idea of the eyes. And her husband, Samuel, actually ministered or was devoted to the blind, devoted his life to the blind. So I think that's interesting that she starts with that text. Another thing, we also don't want to forget that this refrain was a camp meeting song, and some believe also a Sunday school song. So again, we had something like, "There we'll shout and give Him glory. There we'll shout and give Him glory. There we'll shout and give Him glory, for glory is His own." And that was one of the texts. We have some linked to Canaan and many others. So two interesting things there. Now we're singing this on the Sunday of Transfiguration. That's when Jesus takes on a new spiritual appearance. He goes up a mountain, takes on that spiritual appearance, and of course, you can read that in the Gospels if you'd like. And in many ways, that is in this hymn. Because if we look at verse 3, "In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea, with a glory in His bosom that transfigures you and me." So it helps us think about, how do we take on a new spiritual appearance as God is ever present and marching on. So here is, "Mine eyes have seen the glory." sounded forth the trumpet that shall never go retreat. He is sifting out the hearts of men before his judgment seat. Oh, be swift, my soul, to answer him. Be jubilant, my feet. Our God is marching on. Glory, Thank you very much for listening to Hymn of the Week.